The title of this talk, as you can see, is How I Got a Meeting with Ted Turner and Pitched My Idea. You can have the best ideas in the world, but unless you can get in front of the right person with them and sell them, which we'll talk about in a minute, it's a waste of time. So many years ago, Carl Spielvogel, who's a wonderful man and was my rabbi in this business for many years, gave me perhaps the best piece of advice I ever got, and I'm going to pass that on to you now. He said, only talk to the CEO. Anything else is a waste of time. And he was absolutely right. The question is, how do you get in front of the CEO? Well, first of all, how do you get in front of anybody? A lot of people, I have not had a paycheck as an employee in 30 years, and I mean, I've done okay. So the question is, and a lot of people who work with us or take my classes or the seminars say, how do you get beyond the idea and how do you get that meeting, whether you're pitching a show or something else? So I always tell them the same thing. I try to write 100 letters a month. Now, that may seem crazy, but it's actually only 3 letters a day, which is not a big deal. You're wasting your time on Facebook. You should be writing letters. Every time I come across somebody online in an article, in a magazine, in a newspaper that I think might have an interest in what I'm doing, I'll sit down and I'll bang out a short letter to them. And so if I write 100 letters a month and I get 10 answers, which is about what it comes out to, sometimes 8 answers, and then of those 10 answers, if I get 1 deal, that's really all I need. 1 deal a month would be great. I'd probably get 5 deals a year. So it means I'm running a 99.5% failure rate, which is fine with me. So anytime I read about something or see something interesting, I'll immediately sit down and just bang out a letter to them. Many years ago, when I started with this VJ thing and I had this idea, I was watching CNN, when CNN was still the big network and just getting started, sort of, and his new cable channel. And I watched CNN and I thought, shoot, this is a place that needs video journalists instead of these stupid crews they got running all over the place. We'll cut the cost, we'll increase the number of cameras and all that. That's a great idea, but you got to get in front of the right person. And the right person to get in front of at that time was Ted Turner, who was running the thing. I didn't know him from a hole in the wall. He didn't know who I was. I had no connections with him. I had nothing. But I sat down and I wrote him one of my stupid letters. Now, the point of the letters is they're really short. I mean, you have to get to the point right away because these guys have very short attention spans. So it said, Dear Mr. Turner, you make television all wrong. I figured that would get his attention. And I said, I can show you a different way to do it. Well, that was the whole idea. That's what I wanted to do. Next paragraph. I said, you give me 10 minutes and I'll give you the whole world or whatever part of it you don't own already. Very truly yours. And that was pretty much the whole letter. And I mailed it off, and you mail these things off, and you never know we're going to hear from him again. And 3 days later, my phone rings. And it's Ted Turner calling me. I pick up the phone, he goes, this is Ted Turner. I got your letter. You want your 10 minutes? You got it. You'll be in my office tomorrow morning at 9 o'clock. And he hung up the phone. So I thought, great, why not? So the next morning, I went over to his office. He was at 50 Rock, which is just down the street. And I was there at 9 o'clock, like he said, and I walked in the office, and there he is, Ted Turner, standing, this huge guy, and he's standing there, and he holds up his hand, and he starts his watch, and he goes, go, just like that, go. I got my 10 minutes. So I said, you make television all wrong, you shouldn't use big crews, all you need is one person with a little camera. I brought a little camera with me to show him what it looked like. You cut your costs. He goes, you're right, I know, you're right, I know, you're right, I know. And in the middle of my thing, maybe 2 minutes, he goes, stop, stop. He turns to his assistant and he says, get me Pat Mitchell on the phone. Pat Mitchell was running CNN Atlanta. So the assistant comes back like 3 minutes. I'm sitting there. The assistant comes back like 3 minutes later. She says she's in a meeting. Now he went nuts. He goes, you tell her she worked for me. God damn it. You tell her, get her on the phone. I got this Michael Rosenblum in here. He going to go show her a new way to make that. Oh, man. He got on the phone. He said, Pat, I'm sending this Michael Rosenblum down to Atlanta. See you. Hang up the phone. I'm sitting there still like, wow, we're only 4 minutes into the meeting. So he says, you go to Atlanta tomorrow, you get on a plane, you go see Pat Mitchell, you tell her what I told you. I said, okay. Then he comes over to me. He's a big guy. He's a big guy. I'm a little guy. And he stands over me, he smacks me like this really hard. He goes, you a smart Jew, bang, you're going to make me a pile of money. And that was how I got and met Pat and pitched Ted Turner. Well, I flew down to Atlanta the next day, and of course I got to see Pat Mitchell. And when we were in the office, she was all, oh, how we doing? Nice to meet you, smiling and stuff like that. And as soon as she got in the door, in her office, she slammed the door, and she had like lightning bolts coming out of her eyes, and she says, how did you get to him? Well, The way I got to him is the way I got to everybody. I just wrote him a letter. That's all it is. Now, the whole point of writing the letter is, first of all, most people don't bother to write to the CEO. And I think they appreciate it. I don't do emails. These are written letters that are mailed in the post. And I think the point of the letter is that if these guys read it, you got to get right to the point. You cannot mess around. You got to get right to the point and say, I can save you a lot of money. I got this great idea. And I always say, I need 10 minutes. In point of fact, I only need 3 minutes. If you can't sell somebody on 3 minutes, you're never going to sell them at all. An hour is a total waste of time. On the other hand, if you can sell them in 3 minutes, you can have a lifetime relationship with them, which is what often happens. Of course, sometimes they don't bother to answer the letter. So my advice and the point of this whole thing is that if you got a great idea, sit down, write to people, write to everybody you can think of, everybody you find, everybody you read about. It doesn't really make any difference. You never know where it's going to work and it's not going to work. The more chips you put down, the greater the odds that when the roulette ball goes around, it's going to ping on 22, or in this case, Ted Turner. And that's today's story. I hope you liked it.